Warning, this video may contain spoilers for late parts in the game. If you plan on playing this at some point, turn back now. You have been warned. Hello everyone, today we have an interesting game that turned out to be sadly a bit disappointing. By all means, it isn't a wholly bad experience. In fact, I had quite a decent time playing through the game, but maybe I was just expecting a lot more soul due to just how beautiful this game is, as well as the fact that I was interested in playing a game that accounted for some of Sun Wukong's adventures, who is a character from Journey of the West. This turned out to be quite a different take than I had originally expected, and I'll have more to talk on that later. For now, let's talk about the basics. For this game, Sun Wukong is called by one of his other titles, Khitan Dashang. This is who you'll be playing as for the entirety of the game, having a couple different forms of attack. Square will provide you with your combo string, and Triangle does a strong finishing attack to the combo string, as well as, if you only press Triangle, I think performing a strong finisher, though I didn't test this out too much. You can crouch with L1 and do attacks as well, being quite effective against the jewel bugs as well as to destroy containers in order to get items that I'll talk about in just a second. If you press R1, it will bring up a list of abilities that you can use, having its own magic gauge and gaining more abilities as the game progresses. Each defeat of an enemy will yield skill points, being able to go to a Guan Yin statue and upgrade the various skills. I just did whatever with it, as just going to the game normally will allow you to get out and test all of them. The only one I highly recommend is Iron Needle, as it lets you hit airborne enemies and some of the boss's weak spots extremely easily. A form you'll get early in the game is the Rage form. It performs pretty much one-hit kills while you're in it, and is gained kind of randomly through some defeated enemies as an orb. One final form of attack comes with Precision, and is mostly to get a cool animation and a one-hit kill. Right when an enemy starts to attack, if you hit square, you will enter a one-on-one battle, meaning you continue matching square until you win with a couple different variations. If you're quick enough and decide to hit a triangle instead, you will perform a one-hit kill called a Purge. One other thing is by pressing circle you can perform a dodge roll. A couple other things you'll be able to increase are your combos, health, and ability gauge. In order to do this, you need to find the hidden earth gods spread about the game, usually in a circle of leaves, suspicious looking rocks, and in some pots. Coming back to items I was talking about, there is no currency in this game, instead opting to use a streamlined crafting system to get all of your items, including healing, restoring the ability gauge, neuralizing status effects, which I didn't actually encounter much of. You can also create talisman in order to do damage and receive some ability points, as well as to exchange lower tier items for higher tier ones. This game takes place 500 years after the aftermath of Sun Wukong's rebellion against heaven itself and challenging Buddha. The game starts where Dashang had been imprisoned in Crystal, a boy with a child coming upon it before quickly being cornered by monsters. He unknowingly awakens Dashang, who quickly realizes that his powers have been diminished to almost nothing, but still fights the monsters. After their defeat, Dashang attempts to break the chain around his right hand, the goddess Guan Yin appearing and telling him that in order to get rid of the Jingu Chen, being to do good. They see a village that seems to be under attack from monsters, with Dashang being completely ambivalent, only giving in when the bracelet hurts him. After going through and defeating all the monsters, the Jingu Chen reverts a little, opening the seals on some of his magic. When attempting to leave, an old man tells them that their children were captured and taken to Pier Town. Zhu Baji then appears and gets thrown out of the village for stealing food from a shop. Lior, the boy, literally pays for Zhu Baji's crimes with his own money, and the trio head off to Pier Town in order to save the children. They go through a mountain passage and Dashang fights a Rod Titan, its defeat unchaining the Jingu Chen further. After this, they make their way through a forgotten jungle city, the crew growing their bonds while Lior shows interest in learning how to fight like Dashang. They finally make it to Pier Town, being infested with monsters, heading to the docks and learning who is behind all the kidnappings. The man challenges Dashang, who is unable to do any real damage before getting a Dark Rasengan to the chest and going down for the count. Lior tries to fight back, but is easily restrained, with the man uses magic to take on as well. Zhu Baji wakes up Dashang, who talks about the man being Hundun, having regained his magic robes and escaping Seal. Zhu Baji transforms into Lior in an attempt to cheer Dashang up, and he decides to go train at Tri-Star Shrine, climbing a giant mountain in order to reach it. He goes into the shrine and fights a bunch of monsters, the finale of this training being to fight a shadow version of himself, regaining more of the power he had lost upon his defeat. Dashang attempts to impress by bringing out the Nimbus Cloud, but still finds that he's unable to fully use it. Guan Yin speaks to them and tells them that she'll send them to the dragons, as that's where they need to be now. Upon their arrival at Qingzhou Palace, she speaks with them again, saying that the dragons know where the Hanging Temple is, being Hun Dun's hideout. She also relays that they'll find a treasure that will suppress his powers somewhere in the palace. They eventually find such a treasure, being a mystical pearl that will nullify Hun Dun's magic robes, needing to eat it at the right time. Further in the palace, they come across the dragon, Shun Wang, fighting him and winning, leading to his approval and to him deciding to fly the gang to the Hanging Temple. As the three reach the temple, Hun Dun notices them and shoots Shun Wang out of the sky, apparently killing him but allowing Dashang and Zhu Baji to jump off in time and close enough to some platforms. After traversing a bit, they are able to find Lior trapped in a cage with a Vajra god guarding it. Its defeat leading to the reunitement of the team. They finally arrive at the peak where Hun Dun is, and the crew come up with a plan for Lior and Zhu Baji to save the children while Dashang keeps him busy. Dashang does just this before Hun Dun traps him and forces him to fight his monsters. After a while of this, the kids are saved and Lior notices an opening, attacking Hun Dun and surprising him enough to have his magic dissipate. Hun Dun starts to absorb everything in the area, and Zhu Baji eats the pearl while getting sucked into him, destroying his magic robes. Dashang and Hun Dun finally have their showdown before Hun Dun is defeated and slips off the edge of the cliff. The team begin to celebrate before a monstrously transformed Hun Dun smashes Dashang, only barely being able to lift the giant rock before telling the two others to run. Zhu Baji gets out of there, but Lior decides to get Hun Dun's attention in order for Dashang to hopefully catch a break. This works, but not without a cost, as Hun Dun accidentally causes a rock slide that kills Lior and sends him falling off the cliff again. As Dashang realizes what has happened, he gets absolutely pissed, finally awakening his powers once and for all as Hun Dun comes back up the mountain for the final fight. Dashang goes all out, finishing the fight with the Dinghai Chuan Yu Shi, using all his power to rend through Hun Dun and finally decimate the monster he was while avenging Lior. He descends back to the cliff where Zhu Baji is and relays that sadly Lior is dead. Before hearing Lior's voice, Dashang digs out Lior and heads straight to the heavens while Zhu Baji and a seemingly fine Shun Wang, or other dragon, takes the kids back home. When Dashang finally reaches the heavens, he pleads with the gods to revive Lior. A final scene shows Dashang dropping off Lior at Chang'an, saying that he has some catching up to do at Mount Huaguo with his brothers, saying that he'll see Lior around. Personally, I thought this game was fairly fun, a little simplistic, but it stayed interesting as the game went on, and the number of abilities at my disposal increased. Also, as you guys and girls can see, this game is absolutely beautiful at every damn turn, with the music boosting the atmosphere greatly and complementing it just as beautifully. There were definitely some scenes that blew me away, but this is before I knew the game was completely based on a movie from 2016 of the same name. I mean, they were still cool, but this lessened it a bit as original ideas to me. So, I'm gonna have to say right off the bat, there really isn't all that much to the game. There's only around like 6 enemy types besides the bosses, who don't really have all that much substance in the way of fighting them and them fighting back. This game is also extremely easy. I never even died, which is technically good for the review, but still. There is 2 DLC difficulties. One makes the game much easier, which I don't even know how this would be accomplished, and the second raises the difficulty to a ridiculous level of enemies killing you in one hit. Also, this game doesn't let you run. They make it a skill, but even then the running is horribly slippery, and the areas are pretty big, so it just makes the game longer as you have to fast walk through everything. I haven't seen the movie this game is based off, but I did read that there's at least one difference, and while this game is serviceable enough with some DLC that I'll likely play and review at some point later, I think you should just watch this movie or buy the game on sale, which is what I did, but it was still like $25. It did come with all the DLC though, so I can't complain all that much because I did think the experience was decent enough. Hope you enjoyed and see you next video.